Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Wargiven Racing Podcast. This is episode 32, talking about Richmond and its NASCAR Cup and Xfinity action this past weekend. And the title kind of says it all. Strategy makes the difference. For the Xfinity race, it was domination, absolute domination by the front two runners who started the race 1-2. The Joe Gibbs Racing cars of Ty Gibbs and John Hunter Nemechek. And then running through the top 10, it was Sam Mayer, A.J. Allmendinger, Riley Herbst, Daniel Hemrick, Josh Berry, Brandon Brown, Ryan Sieg, and Parker Retzlaff, who was running his second ever race for Ryan Sieg's team here at Richmond after running Phoenix a few weeks ago. So you may notice that the format's different. That's mainly due to my personal time constraints, and I apologize for that. But really, this race, we don't have much to talk about. It was pure, simple domination by the top two cars. I mean, looking at the stage, the 18 won the first stage, the 54 won the second stage. The 54 and the 18 never really dropped out of contention at all. And then with the fuel windows for the Xfinity cars, which was about 125 laps, I'd say was their green flag run, they didn't need to make a green flag pit stop. So strategy here was just staying in front and using lap traffic to your advantage. Now, stage one, Nemechek, went out there, dominated. There was only 3 cautions, and that caution came in the only caution that wasn't a stage caution came in the beginning of stage 2 when Noah Gragson's brakes, I'm pretty sure, exploded to an extent. So the fastest competitor to the JGR cars lost his brakes quite early on. So everybody else was kind of just trying to play catch-up. Josh Berry was running well. Actually, he was the only other driver to lead a lap in this race, leading a singular lap. But I believe at the end of stage 2, he was penalized for speeding. And so that sent him to the back. And, because of Richmond being Richmond, Richmond is a very difficult track to pass on. It's very aero-sensitive, especially for a short track. So you really needed the good runs. And while Barry had that over the back of the field, he didn't have the time to get up to the front, and catch the leaders even because there was no caution. So, it was just Ty Gibbs and John Hunter Nemechek dominating the race. And then the very ending, and this was controversial, but Nemechek had just taken the lead, I believe, with 2 laps to go. Ty Gibbs, going on to the last lap, tried to give Nemechek the bumper in turn 1 and 2. Just bump him up out of the groove and then slide on under traditional, NASCAR short track racing. Didn't do it. Nemechek is ahead, but Gibbs has the run going down into turn 3, and Gibbs sends it into the corner. And then I was trying to think of what to say, but he doored Nemechek up. And in my opinion, pretty fair move, especially for NASCAR. He didn't wreck Nemechek. Nemechek finished second. Was it a little more aggressive than a traditional just bump? Yes. But at the same time, Nemechek left the door open, and I'm not sure Nemechek could have done anything about it, but coming off of turn 2, if I was John Hunter, I would have been taking that inside lane. I mean, you got to defend the inside, and you have to know who you're racing. Ty Gibbs is extremely aggressive. Whether that be because he's Joe Gibbs' grandson and doesn't have to worry about, money or doesn't really have to worry about the repercussions internally from the team if he wrecks cars. So he's aggressive. He sent it. He did not care that was his teammate. He was fighting for the win, and it showed. he bumped them up out of the way. I thought it was honestly clean. So I had no issue with it. But, just looking again at the statistics, it was a 2-hour race. It was pretty quick, especially for an Xfinity race, which tend to have a bit more cautions. Like I mentioned, there was 3 cautions, 24 laps. 2 of those were because of the stage, and there were 8 lead changes with only 3 leaders. So that shows that the 18 and the 54 really were, by far the best the class of the field, the best cars. So again, Herbst had a good day. Sam Mayer had a great day. I mean, finishing top 3. That's, I think, his best finish in an Xfinity car. AJ Allmendinger continues his streak of 7 top 10s in 7 races. Like I mentioned, Parker Retzlaff, wow. I mean, this dude's mainly an iRacing guy, and he's young. But second ever Xfinity race to run top 10 in a Ryan Sieg car, beat Junior Motorsports, beat Joe Gibbs, beat Colleague, beat both Richard Childress cars, beat another Junior Motorsports car. Granted, Gregson had problems. Oh, excuse me. But that's massively impressive. I mean, that he was able to do that well. I mean, he nearly beat his boss. Cars on the lead lap, there was only 19, which is actually higher than I thought there was going to be. I thought there was a lot more cars put a lap down. So, yeah, that's really all for Xfinity. Just taking a quick look at the standings. Through 7 races, AJ Allmendinger leads the points over Ty Gibbs. Gregson's tied 3rd. Barry, Allgaier, Mayer round up the top 6. So, Junior Motorsports has 3 through 6. Brandon Jones, Daniel Hemrick, Austin Hill, Ryan Sieg, Riley Herbst, and Sheldon Creed round out the playoff positions at the moment, with Brandon Brown tied with Creed for 12th, but on position, I'm assuming, is not in the playoffs. And then Alfredo is 6 back, Jeb Burton 12 back, Landon Castle 14 back. And then J.J. Yelly, and I mean, that's really it. I guess Brett Moffitt might challenge for the playoffs, but that's to be determined. I mean, it's really going to take for, Yaley, Snyder, Clements, the 3 other full-time drivers. It's going to take a win for them to get in the playoffs. So we probably got our playoff grid more or less set up, which is quite unusual considering we are only 7 races in and still have 19 to go in the regular season. So now moving to the Cup race. So let's get that pulled up here. A lot different. I was expecting this week to have a good Xfinity race and then an average Cup race. And while the Cup race wasn't a barn burner, I mean, I thought it was better than the Xfinity race. And that's not saying the Xfinity race was bad. I thought it was interesting to see the battle between Nemechek and, Gibbs, and they were the fastest cars, so they deserve to win. But going over the top 10 here at the Cup Series, Denny Hamlin, Kevin Harvick, Byron, Truex, Larson, Bell, Blaney, Bowman, Busch, and Dillon. This certainly, I did not expect to have the strategy that it did. The first stage, I believe, was 70 laps. Yes, 70 laps. Stage 2 was 160 laps, and then Stage 3 was the remaining 170. With the fuel run being, I think it was 135 laps, I was expecting them to split the stage in half, well, both Stage 1 and Stage 2, and just, everyone was going to do the same thing. That didn't happen. But Stage 1 was dominated by Ryan Blaney. Stage 2, everybody you really see up in the front here, minus Kyle Larson, who was in the teens for most of the day, was up front, and you can see lead laps. Byron 122, Truex 80, Bell 63, Blaney 128. So there was a lot of parity in that middle stage, and it was odd because the cars that did the one stop in Stage 2. So that was Christopher Bell, Bowman. I guess Bowman and Truex did the same. But a lot of cars stayed out. Or actually, no, a lot of cars pit in Stage 2 early, like 55 laps in, to get fresh tires. And I was like, what? Is there really that much of a time advantage? And it was, I mean, pretty equal if you could hold your pace on the long run, which Bell did in stage 2 and Truex did in stage 2. Actually, no, Truex pitted twice in stage 2. So, like, Bell, Chastain, Logano, I believe, all did 1 stops in stage 2. Truex did a 2-stop. And then they switched. So the cars that didn't do a 2-stop, so Denny Hamlin only did a 1-stop in stage 2. Kevin Harvick did a 2-stop in stage 2. But Truex did a 2-stop and then did a 1-stop. Larson did a 2-stop and then did a 1-stop. It was just weird. Like, I've never seen strategy like that in stage racing. I'm used to the intermediates where there's 120 laps. You pit 60 laps in and then bam, you're done. It's just a 1 pit. So it was fascinating to see how there was actually strategy within one of these races. And it was so refreshing to see. Obviously, I'm a bit biased. Kevin Harvick finished second, so I was pretty happy with the result, even though he didn't win. But really, the last 50 laps, so right after the 2-stoppers pit again, they were over a lap down on William Byron, who's winning. And Truex and Larson were slowly clawing Byron's lead away. Because what Byron did was he pit just after the first stop for the 2-stoppers in stage 3. But then he stayed out the rest of the stage. I think he stayed out 90-some laps on his tires, which I wasn't expecting. And he had about, I think it was a 2-second lead over Truex with about 30 to go. And by that point, Harvick and Hamlin and Harvick had gotten past Byron, but still had like 20 seconds to make up in 30 laps. And it was insane to see the difference. Now, some people I've seen, it was inevitable, No, it wasn't. You always have to manage traffic. If there was a late race caution, it wouldn't have mattered because everybody would have pit. So I don't blame Byron and Truex for trying what they did. They were trying to get the win. I mean, so were Hamlin and Harvick. But Byron already has a win, so I guess, and the broadcast correctly mentioned this, he could be more risky. He doesn't have to, get that next win. That aspect of the winning you're in playoffs I don't like, but, that is what it is. He was doing what he had to do, and he was trying to get another win, because why not? He saw a way to win, and it almost worked. It worked up until the final 5 laps, because with traffic and the wearing tires, Truex and Larson started to stall out. Truex got to about, I think it was 3/4 of a second. Larson never got closer than 4 seconds because then he got swallowed up by Harvick and Hamlin. And with, I believe, about 10 to go, they were there. Like, Hamlin and Harvick were there, and it just took a bit of traffic to slow up Byron and Truex that much more to where Hamlin and Harvick could just go right down to the inside because they didn't have the grip. The 19 and the 24 didn't have the grip anymore. And so, it was crazy. I mean, how often do you see a car that's over a lap down because of green flag pit stops on a short track come back and win a race? And, that's due to Richmond's unique nature. It's a wider short track. It's a higher banked short track. It's not like Bristol High. But then again, it's 3/4 of a mile. It's our only 3/4 mile track. The surface is worn down. You saw tire wear mattered. And even though Byron had maintained his tires probably the best anyone could on 90-lap-old tires, just had no defense. And so, yes, it wasn't the green right checker playoff end. Like it wasn't that ending. But it still was exciting because you're like, is something going to happen? Is a caution going to happen? It felt like a race. It was a race against time. Could Byron click down the laps quick enough that Denny Hamlin wouldn't catch him? And the answer was no. And this was the first race this year that ended without a shootout. So I was thrilled. I hate the shootouts personally, unless it's a natural caution. I hate the overtime shootout. I want it to be a real real thing is just the wrong word, but I want it to be organically occurring within the race, and that's what this was. And it was so nice to see. Congrats to Denny Hamlin getting his first win of the season, first top 10 of the season. After really struggling to start the season, he's now more or less locked into the playoffs, unless we have 16 winners, which could happen, or I guess 17 winners. Kevin Harvick came up really close. It sucks that Byron and Truex didn't, but Ryan Blaney. I mean, what does Ryan Blaney have to do to get a win? He's won the most. He's led the most amount of laps. He's won 3 stages. What does the man have to do? Bowman continuing his consistency. Kyle Busch having a good day. Joe Gibbs had all 4 cars in the top 10, which I think they haven't had all 4 cars in the top 20 in any race yet this season. So that was obviously good for them. No real surprises, unlike the Xfinity race where you had Parker Retzlaff in the top 10. Chastain was quick, but then fell back. The Roush Fenwick Keselowski cars actually were pretty quick, but they decided to pit earlier in stage 3 and get that undercut, and they just fell off towards the end. Chase Elliott just seemed to have a diva of a car the entire day. Austin Dillon had a very solid day to finish 10th. Harrison Burton, that's the shout-out. 18th, this was the first race that he looked competitive at, and that was other than Daytona. But that's a super speedway. That's different. For a normal track, it was nice to see Harrison Burton put down consistent, solid laps. Looking at the stats, 5 cautions, so 2 stage cautions, and then 3 others. Let's see here. The race was only 3 hours, which was really nice to see. It was quick pace. It kept going, and that long green flag run helped. There were 13 lead changes, which for Richmond, in my opinion, that's quite a lot. I mean, here, let's take a look at the last race here, this track. Okay, never mind. There were 21. I'm an idiot. But it felt different. There were lots, in my opinion, lots of passing. 3,000 passes, 8.4 per lap. I really enjoyed this race. It was a different pace. It was a strategy race. It just felt good. 2 DNFs, Greg Biffle and Cody Ware. Biffle had a suspension problem, which the broadcast did not talk about. Again. Cody Ware hit the wall pretty hard. So he DNF'd on the crash. Kurt Busch had an engine stall out on lap 10, yeah. So he had a fuel problem, just a fuel pump problem, so they had to change that. Lost, 109 laps? Jesus. Shout out to BJ McLeod, though, losing 14 laps under green flag racing. To me, that's kind of insane. But, kept it clean. And then the other accident involved the 2, the 41 and the 42. Ty Dillon and Custer were going. Ty Dillon dove to the inside of Cole Custer, who was to the inside of Austin Cindric. There was contact between the doors of Custer and Dillon. Went up into Cindric, tagged him. He spun around. Didn't knock him out of the race, but he didn't do really that well, Cindric. So he finished 20th, 1 lap down. Last car a lap down. And yeah, only 8.8% of the race was under caution, which I love to see. 61 laps was the average. Now looking at the standings, we've got Blaney and Elliott tied, but Blaney's stage wins puts him ahead. Truex is third, 19 points behind, followed by Byron, Logano, Chastain, Bowman, Harvick, Briscoe, Busch, rounding out your top 10. And then your final 6 playoff drivers are Eric Almirola, Kyle Larson, Tyler Reddick, Daniel Suarez, Austin Cindric, and then Denny Hamlin, who is 93 points back from the regular season lead. So, yeah. That's 8 races now, or 7 races with 7 different winners. Denny Hamlin, first winner over the age of 30 to do it. So if you look at the locked-in playoffs, Blaney, because of his regular season playoff points that he'd get if he won it, is in first. But the winners, Byron, Chastain, Bowman, Briscoe, Hamlin, Larson, and Cindric, all chilling in the top 16. So, yeah. That's that. Now we take a look at the custom points, the fun fast car custom points. Ignore this top stuff. That's for this weekend at Martinsville. But AJ Allmendinger extends his lead, or actually doesn't extend it, but still has the lead. Gragson now drops back to 3rd. Josh Berry up to 4th. Ryan Sieg up to 5th, which is super impressive from him. And all top 20 cars are full-time, which is nice to see. Although John Hunter Nemechek tried his best to break into that top 20. And the last full-time car is the 78 of Josh Williams, and then the 99 of Parsons, both for BJ McLeod, are the last 2 full-time cars. So that kind of sucks for them. They've been having some struggles, but we've really only got a 3-way race for the title now, between Allmendinger, Gibbs, and Gragson, unless they collapse or someone goes on a spectacular run. But then again, we've got, 50 points covering the rest of the top 10, which is nice to see. Moving on to the Cup Series, it's a lot closer. The top 10 is only separated by 115 points, which is more than Allmendinger to Gragson for Xfinity, so that's again, insane that AJ Allmendinger has finished 7 out of 7 races in the top 10. Denny Hamlin climbs up to 22nd, but still is 310 points off the lead. Let's see, other notable names. Kurt Busch dropped. I believe he was 5th last week, but dropped to 14th because of his very low finish this week. I believe it was 35th. Yeah, so that's not great. Bowman jumps Chastain. I mean, again, tight championship battle. We've got that's 35 points. This is 50 points. We've got 50 points separating 1st to 6th. So just for perspective, that is a difference from finishing 1st to 10th. Yeah, 1st to 10th, not including bonus points. So I think it's going quite well. I'm not using this to make my comment on NASCAR and their point system, but I think that, if we went full point standings, even with the current system, that includes stage points, it's still pretty close. You've got, 60 points is the max you can get, but 40 points for, so the top 7's within a race victory. And if you include stage points, the top 13 are all within max points day of the leaders. So again, the parity, it's been pretty nice to see. Well, that will be all from me today. Expect quite a bit weekend preview videos coming up this weekend, as we've got NASCAR at Martinsville starting Thursday night with the Truck Series, followed up by Xfinity on Friday. Then on Saturday, we have IMSA and Formula E, NASCAR at night. Then Sunday, you've got Formula 1 at 1 a.m. Eastern Standard, which is going to be a blast for me, and then I have to work an 8-hour shift. And then there is IndyCar, Long Beach Grand Prix, Sunday afternoon. So another full weekend of racing. If you enjoyed today's little recap of Richmond, hit that like button. Leave your thoughts on Richmond. Should it stay? Should it have 2 races? Was this a good race? My answer is yes. I give this race a 7 out of 10 because of its unique strategy that we saw. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Have a great